All right, you guys, welcome back to another episode here on the show. I am super excited to be connected with Carrie and to bring you Carrie's genius today on the podcast. And let me give you a little bit of backstory. Carrie and I met on Clubhouse. And immediately when I heard her speak, I was like, oh my gosh, I want to hang out with her. I want to learn more from her. And you're going to know exactly why if you haven't met her already yet on Clubhouse on today's episode. So Carrie, welcome to the SweetLife Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm so excited that you're here. Tell everybody a little bit about how you became such like a brand whisperer. You're like the branding ninja genius. Tell everybody about you.
Oh my gosh, you're so sweet. So first of all, thank you so much. Like it literally means the world to have like for you to invite me on the show, literally all the things. So I actually started in this journey. I have my degree in humanistic psychology. So I've always wanted, like, even when I was little, like I used to always be like, why do people do the things that they do? Like, what are the things that makes them like make the choices that they make? So I was doing that, got my degree in human psychology, and then I actually got a job. It was actually thrown at me. I was working at a restaurant, like one of my he's like my brother. He was like, hey, Carrie, I want you to run my restaurant. And I'm like, I never did any of this ever in life. And he was like, yeah, but you're smart. You'll figure it out. And I was like, thanks, we'll figure it out. So I did that. And I remember like the most pivotal moment, this one I was like, I got to get my stuff together, is like it was a pizza place. And I was like doing the order and stuff. And I was like, okay, we need cheese. So I was like 6. Not knowing that the 6 was like 6 boxes instead of like 6 bags.
Oh yeah, because it's bulk ordering. So I definitely originally spent a lot of time in restaurants. So I absolutely totally know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I'm like 6. I was like 6. And it's funny because he left me, like I would say at least 3 weeks in, he left me to go on vacation for a month. So like I'm over here like trying to do orders, trying to do all this stuff. And I'm just like, I don't know what to do. So the shipment comes in, it's like 6, it's like all this cheese keeps coming in. And they're like, Carrie, what did you order? I'm like, I ordered like 6 bags of cheese. They were like, Carrie, come look at this. And it's like each box has 12 bags. And I'm just like, oh
yeah.
Okay, let's figure this out. So we had cheese pizzas, $1 slice. Like,
forever, for a year.
Like selling it out. But actually, it's funny because everybody always asks me, like, how did I start learning all the things that I learned? But it was actually that mistake. So I was like, we were very new in business. And I was like, we have to get people in these doors. I was like, I have all this cheese. Shamar comes home in 2 weeks and he's going to literally like yell at me and cuss me out. I have to figure this out. So I was like, I need all the people around us to like know we're here. Like, how can I do it? And I was like, well, what would be the easiest thing to do? And I was like, the easiest thing to do is like to get in touch with all the restaurants and businesses around me to know us, to come over. So literally what we did, I was like, hey, we got this cheese pizza. We're going to give everybody a free cheese pizza. We're just going to drop it off. So literally we just start dropping off cheese pizzas and me, happy personality. Hey, thank you guys so much. My name's Carrie. I'm the manager at Poppy Pizza Palace. I just want to drop off this cheese pizza to you. Please let me know if you ever want to come hang out. I'm always there. My team's always there. We would love to have you. Like literally just everywhere. Like just dropping off cheese pizzas to galore. I'm like Oprah with cheese pizzas. I'm like, you get a cheese pizza.
You get a cheese pizza. You get a cheese pizza.
And it was so crazy because literally like within a week, people just start coming and they were like, Carrie, like no one's ever dropped us off pizza. And then like you were just like your energy was just so amazing that we just wanted to come hang out with you. So literally like people just start coming and coming. Luckily all the cheese was gone before he came. So I was good.
You pulled it off.
But that was when I realized I was like, when like in business, you need to double down on what you're good at. And for me, it's always been connections and relationships. So I was like, I'm gonna have to double down on this. I'm gonna have to create this visibility strategy. And what I start calling was the Fat 5 visibility. So like literally, I want to be extremely visible to every business within 5 miles of us. So around the perimeter. And that's what we did. And we were able to become so extremely profitable in the business. And I did that. And I did that for about 2 years. But like I just graduated from college and it wasn't cool to not to have insurance anymore.
I understand.
So I had to go into corporate, and I did corporate restaurants, and I actually was at Subway corporate, working on the opposite side of as a franchise, as a business consultant, working with franchisees, helping them increase their visibility and profitability.
Wow.
So that's what I was doing. But the whole time I was still with my thoughts of like, how can we get people in the restaurant? How can we change the perception? Because of course, Subway, big place. How can we change the perception, especially when there's so many Subways? How can we make this Subway the go-to Subway in terms of everybody else that's in the area? And that's what we kept doing. How can we do the things? How can we do it? And sadly, my father passed away March of 2019. And that's kind of when I was like, I wanted to do more. My dad was in the military for 26 years. He made so much impact in people's lives. Like, I remember at the funeral, they were like, I had one conversation with Paul and like literally my life changed. I was like, oh my gosh, like I knew he was great, but I didn't know he was like one call, like one conversation. And I told myself I wanted to do more. I wanted to do more outside of that. And one of my franchisees, he always used to say that, because I made my own schedule and I didn't really work a lot of hours. He was like, Carrie, you need to do something, like start a business. And I was like, doing what? He was like, just do this. And I was going to do it in restaurants. But after my father died, I was like, I really want to work with impact-driven entrepreneurs. I want to work with people who have missions and messages that they want to get out, but they're not visible. Their brands aren't in alignment with who they are. I need to help them get visible so people can so the impact that they want to make, they can finally make in the lives of others.
And okay, so what I love, first of all, I'm so sorry you lost your dad. I lost my dad 6 years ago, and I still, every single like week or so, like pick up the phone to call him and then remember he isn't there. It's really, really tough. And sometimes, having a vision into seeing something differently, whether it's, what happened to you, it is just such an eye-opening thing. And I am sorry that happened, but I also love your story, because it's usually something like that makes us stop and be like, okay, hey, wait a minute. Am I really where I'm supposed to be? And am I actually using my skills? The thing I love about what you said about brand strategy is that what you have taught these businesses to do isn't this like, Procter and Gamble or Budweiser or huge big brand strategy. You're really talking down on this level to these, what we call micro businesses. Okay. Like 90% of our listeners of the show are micro businesses. We don't even qualify to be a small business because that you can have up to 100 employees, right? And so these micro entrepreneurs that have very, very small teams, and the concept of being the go-to business, not for everybody, but just within this sphere of influence, granted it's different, we're talking about online business, is so simple and yet so smart. And so I love what we're going to dive into today on this show. And thank you for sharing that. I think that so many are like, I did years and years and years waiting tables and bartending. My husband was in corporate restaurants. There's so many entrepreneurs that are from the restaurant industry. It's because we are badasses at multitasking. Actually, I'll say that.
That's what it is.
Like if you can be in the restaurant industry, you can do anything.
Anything. And I used to do fine dining, and I think that's when I was like, oh, I can do all things now.
Right. Yeah, I did fine dining. Like at the end, I did fine dining, and I was like, man, I actually should have been doing this. I sell $300 bottle of wine, make as much money as I did, back when I was 17, serving vegan food across a bar. But it was great. It was a good experience. And so diving into, kind of brand strategy, some of the things that we're going to talk about today, and our audiences want to know. My people ask me this, your people ask you this, like this is the thing they want to know. And we're going to break this down for you guys today on the show. The biggest question is how do we build this business and personal brand at the same time? How do we know the balance between, what we're sharing out there as a company and what we're sharing out there as a personal brand, as a human, and that kind of behind the scenes? And you have 3 different things you're going to take us through today, which I'm so excited to talk about. And so the first thing that you say in your process that you bring people through in branding strategy is understanding your customers' core drivers and really like what keeps them up at night. Can
Yeah.
you elaborate on that? Teach our listeners that process. And this being step number one. Here's what you guys got to do in order to tap into this level of influence.
Yeah. So what you want to do is you really want to understand who they are. So of course, like people say like, what books do they read? What Facebook groups do they hang out? That's great. But you also want to really understand the psychological like factors, like who motivates them, like where, like when they have a bad day, what are the things that kind of get them out of it. And the way that you do that is the easiest way to do that is by start talking to your customers. Like start asking those personal questions, like have that relationship with your customer, like, hey, like I know that was crazy, like you were doing that launch and I know it was a little rough, like what were you kind of going through, like let's talk about it, let's see if we can dive through it, so next time they might understand what you're doing, next time we can fix it. And a lot of times they were like, Carrie, like I really really want to be able to like be there for my family. I want to be able to create this life for my family. And like that, so that's what's keeping them up at night. Like that's the thing. And you'll hear it, they'll tell you. And they're like, I want to be able to do this with, like, every time I feel like I'm getting almost there, I just can't take that leap. So having those interviews with your clients and actually listening to what they say, because I think a lot of times we don't really listen to what our clients say, but actually listening and then actually diving deeper and saying, okay, like, so you really want to help your family. Like, what are you trying to do? Like, what do you want to do with your family? I really want to put my daughter in private school. I really want my wife to be able to homeschool like our youngest. I like stuff like that. Having those conversations is what is going to be able, so you can understand how to communicate with them and how to do those other pieces that we're going to talk about in the later.
Yeah, so smart. Okay, so first of all, people don't like taking time to do this. And it's the best market research they can do. And it's the most direct. And I love that you said that, because a lot of entrepreneurs, like, we are solutions finders. So we just want to put a solution out and be like, oh yeah, it'll sell. And I love that I love that you talk about how important it is to actually talk to your audience. For sure, the best market research. If you guys are not on Clubhouse with me and Carrie, you should go on Clubhouse, because it's like market research gold. You can just start a room about a question that you want answered, and you're going to get all the feedback. Some you don't want, but some really great, important feedback regarding what you guys are trying to do. And so understanding basically what keeps them up at night, and the things that matter to them that do not have anything to do with what you're selling. And that's what I heard what you said.
Oh, I like that. That. Yeah. And it doesn't, and the thing is, like, when you create, because I think, like, this is the part, it's funny because I feel like I'm always on the soapbox, is just because especially because we're online entrepreneurs, just because we're in the online space doesn't mean that our clients are just like these pixelated people. They're real people in the real world with real life things that are going on every day. And those things, despite just because they're on the screen, it's still happening. So you have to take time and ask those questions and try to figure out what is their real day-to-day like. Like for me, I'm a homeschooling auntie. So I get up at 7:00 in the morning to homeschool my niece. That there is something that that's a driver for you.
Yeah. And very impressive, by the way, just so you know, you're a superstar, rock star aunt for sure, but very important. Okay. And just understanding those other drivers behind the scenes. Okay. And like the second thing you had said, and this like really kind of it pulls off of what we were just talking about, is understanding your brand archetype. First of all, can you please explain to our listeners that don't even know what a brand archetype is? Like, what is the definition? What is a brand archetype? And then help our listeners understand how to utilize that.
Yeah. So the easiest way to explain what a brand archetype is, if everybody is familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So everybody has certain needs and desires that they have to get to be able to survive and feel like they've made the next steps. So of course, water, shelter, money, commitment, relationship, that's what people need. Those same things that they need are the same things that go into the brand archetype. Like they have the hero brands, magician brands, the innocent, the sage, like all those are different brand archetypes, but all of those are based on the core needs that we have innately. So what happens and how to really leverage it is a differentiating factor. So a lot of times, especially right now on social media, because everybody came online, there's a lot of people that do the same thing. Like I feel like I can throw a rock in social media and hit a brand strategist.
Yeah.
But because they haven't leveraged a brand archetype, they're speaking the same language that everybody else is speaking. When you actually create a brand archetype and speak in that language, you've differentiated yourself, and you're actually now tapping into the core needs and the core desires of your dream client, of your raving fan. So now when it comes to your offers and your services and your opt-ins, they're like, hey, I'm going to listen to this person because they're speaking to me instead of speaking to everybody else. And what we call that's the true foundation of creating a frictionless brand.
Wow. Okay. And one of the notes I took when we were talking like a little bit behind the scenes in planning this show is that people go to the brand that understands their thought process. And I thought that was so smart that you said that. And they're going to the ones that speak to their heart, and they're going to the ones that speak to their true desires. And honestly, what their personality is as a person. Those are the ones that they're attracted to. And you even you said something about your mom. You shared this really cool thing. Like your mom's attracted like safe brands, like, like a lot of moms are in that, in that whatever Grammys and moms are, right? And maybe that's just generation, whereas that's not the same thing that necessarily drives everybody else too.
Yeah, because it's like a key example about, let's say you have a mom who really like feels like I'm looking for like a brand that's safe, that's secure. They're going to be looking for conversations and words that's going to be like assurance, secure. Like that's the words that they're going to want to hear, because that's going to speak to their language. But for me, like I get excited by like transformation, innovation, things like that. Yeah. So I want to hear things like creative, like innovative, like moving
disruptive.
forward, disruptive, things like that. That's the stuff that I'm gonna be like, oh yes, speak to me. But but you have to understand, and that's why I said it's super important to understand who your customer is at an innate level to be able to have that conversation when it comes to your brand archetype.
So cool. So cool. Okay. And then the next step you're going to take our listeners through is understanding now how to represent that visually. What does that look like? What are your tips on actually bringing it visually to the world?
Yeah. So the thing is, like I always tell people that colors have feelings and fonts have emotions. So you want to make sure that whenever you choose your brand archetype, you look and you kind of see like what feelings actually are kind of bringing off, like what descriptive words are actually bringing off. So let's say you have a rebel brand. If you think of a rebel brand, like if you think of like Harley Davidson and things like that, is very bold, disruptive, like challenges the status norm. So when you think of their colors, you're going to think of reds, blacks, things like that. You're not going to think of like a baby pink. It's going to throw it all off. You're going to be like, hold up, like this is not speaking to me.
I wrote that down. Yeah. You said colors have feelings and fonts have emotions. Yeah. Wow. That is so true. Yeah. We wouldn't think that for sure. And I think oftentimes we'll look at a brand and wonder why that maybe that brand doesn't really turn us on, or we're really not really attracted to it. And yeah, a lot of the times it's like, yeah, those colors just don't make me feel like I want to feel.
They don't do it for me. And it's funny because I always, I feel like makeup brands, I used to be a makeup artist, like in my past life. But
I love entrepreneurs. We're so cool.
I
know our lives are like we're so mixed up. There's so many experiences we bring in here.
Yeah. So I used to do makeup, and like I used to always think it was super cool, like how makeup brands created different looks and feels to attract different people. So like are you a makeup girl? Do you hang out at
No, I literally don't wear makeup at all. I get my eyelashes glued on, so I don't even have to wear mascara. It's the only thing I do. I don't know how to do makeup. I've never worn makeup. I have zero clue. But I'm just weird. All of our listeners probably know exactly what you're just about to say. So yeah. Carry on.
So like Benefit, who else is gonna be really good in this? Benefit, Tarte, like those were really poppy, like millennial brands, like that's what they give off. They give that poppy millennial, like This is the new trendy item. But then you have like NARS, Estee Lauder, things like that that give like this luxe feel, and the prices are different just because of it. Because you're like, oh, like you when you go over to NARS and Estee Lauder, like you in your mind already say, hey, let me just spend it. I'm probably gonna spend $300 at this point. I'm prepared.
Wow. Again, why don't do makeup? That's an airplane ticket to me. But I get what you're saying. You know, that's a ticket on a journey to me. No, I get what you're saying, and it's such a good correlation. And so this visual representation. So first we talked about understanding what keeps your people, your ideal people up at night, not even necessarily as it actually relates to your product or your service or your program or your course or whatever it is that you're selling. So what are their core drivers? The second thing that you talked about, I love the brand archetype in understanding how to create that connection between the personality of your buyer and the personality of your brand. And I know that, you know, that's spoken about often, but I really appreciate you breaking it down on the show. We haven't had somebody on the show in 4 years that's actually talked about brand archetypes. So I wanted to make sure that that was really defined for our listeners. And then you're talking about bringing it out visually and making sure that there's a very clear visual representation that is thoughtful in color and font. And then obviously in messaging and the work that you did within the brand archetype development. The last question I want you to answer for us today, I'm very interested to get your take on this. This is literally a topic of conversation within my mastermind today. People were just, you know, everybody has a different thought on this. For entrepreneurs that are building both that business and that personal brand, we've talked about understanding the actual brand strategy of it, but now actually the process of posting and sharing. What percentage do you recommend people share transparent, totally irrelevant, behind the scenes versus about the business? Is there a split that you have seen that's working behind and being transparent in what you're showing your audience, even at literally—
Sorry, couldn't hear what you said.
Siri's listening to me. She's always listening, you guys. Everybody. I gotta turn her off. You know, what is that percentage? What is that difference that you see as far as posting about the business and posting about the company brand versus posting about what's personal, maybe what you're cooking for dinner or a hike you're on, or even your kids?
Okay, so this is exciting for me because I always talk about this, and we have a thing, we call it our content buckets. And in those content buckets, normally they're about, I would say at the minimum about 3 to 5. So that kind of depends on like where you're at. How we try to map it out is what strategic pieces of content that's actually, and this will kind of break down like how all of it happens. The strategic pieces of content that is how you think about stuff. So like, what is your thought processes on your business? Like for me, like when I talk about brand, like and a lot of times the easiest way is like, what's your show? Like, what's your stage? Like, do you have a podcast? Do you have a YouTube? Do you have a Facebook show where you're actually able to have conversations with people and people can understand how you think? So that's going to be your one bucket. Your second bucket is going to be, what are the things that can come from those pieces of content that you just talked about that can be resourceful for people who might not be ready to work with you now? So what are the things? So for me, like if you ever go to my social media, like we teach about brand archetypes, we teach about color theory, we teach about different font pairings and color palettes that people can use. That doesn't really do anything for me, but it becomes a resourceful aspect for somebody else, which provides education, but also still goes aligned with our strategy. The next part is always going to be, what does your heart speak? Like, are you a person that like is motivated by, like, you want to inspire people? Do you want to motivate people? Do you want to make people laugh? Like, what is that heart piece that's like really close to you? So for me, it's always to try to inspire other people. So in March, we had like the She Who Marches. We had nothing to do with our business, but it was inspirational for me because I always want to highlight other people, inspire other people to show like, hey, these amazing people are doing amazing things. You need to see what they're doing. Get inspired by them. The next part is, who are our clients? what's their testimonies? What are our case study? Who are the people that we want to actually work with inside? Like who they are inside? Like who are your avatars? Like why do you work with the people? Like where are they at in their journey of why they want to, when are they ready to work with you? Have that in there. And then the last piece, so it'll be 20% if you do 5. The last piece, we call it all things your name. So like it will be all things April, all things Carrie. Like what are the things that is about me? So those are like, for me, is like my reels and my TikToks. Like I'm showing my personality, I'm doing all my things, I'm doing my dancing, because that's me. I'm actually like a happy-go-lucky person. Like I did like an egg drop competition thing with my niece and nephew this weekend. I did that in my story. That's my day-to-day life that shows the different parts of me. But what happens, and this is what's super cool, and I love it with our clients, is their social media becomes a place where people just want to hang out. Because they just want to see what's going on. What are they doing today? Like, oh, that's really cool inspiration. I didn't know about that. That's a great thought process. Didn't think about that. They keep coming back over and over and over again. You'll start seeing all these profile business on your page. You're like, these people just keep hanging out. I really didn't post anything this week, but they keep coming back because you become a place where they feel comfortable and happy.
I love that. Okay. Those 5 buckets are absolutely genius. And I know people are like, okay, don't forget, you guys, this podcast, you can replay it. I have notes
like,
here on the 5 buckets. So I let me see if I can restate the 5 buckets. Number 1 is your thought processes or your methods or your systems or kind of your what I would call your signature method, your signature framework, like your IP, your zone of genius. The second one are actions people can take, and a place where you can be resourceful based on your zone of genius and what you teach. Who aren't ready to buy from you. The third one is, what does your heart speak? Like, are you a motivator? Are you funny? Like, what other things can you share that are really, that might or might not relate to your business, right? That what does your heart speak? The fourth is, who are our clients? What are the case studies? What do they need from us? What, how to know when they're ready to work for us or work with us? What is that trigger? What are some of the things that our clients are working on? And then the fifth one is all things your name. Like, what are you up to today? What are you doing? And so that does answer like the 20%. I think that what does your heart speak also is also possibly very personal as well.
But it can go business. And that's the really cool part. Because like for me, us really being like, us caring about people is a part of our core values. So when it came to the She Who Marches, and even like our event that's coming up in June, it is an alignment with that. So like the Boss Brunch is an alignment with what my heart speaks, because my heart speaks of how to inspire people to take those next steps in their life. Even if it's not with me, just take the next steps.
Yeah, so cool. It's the things that your beliefs and your motivators and things like that. I love that so much. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show. This was a lot of great information. And I know some of our listeners went from never even understanding branding to going from how to understand the audience and even now how to create content. I mean, that's just way above, what I think a lot of our listeners. So if you guys hung out until the end, you literally got, your content buckets, which is super genius. How can people find you? How can they connect with you if they want to know more about your services and what you do?
Yeah, you can just visit us at www.connectwithsolasta.com. It's funny, because Solasta actually is an Irish word that means to bring light to, which goes into our brand, which is what we try to do even like in our business, is to shine light on other people's brand, to bring light to them and have people see them. So that's why I love our business.
So smart. See, you're a brand strategist, good namer, good business namer too. And then this is episode number 224 here on the SweetLife Entrepreneur Podcast. So you guys can find all the show notes and all of Carrie's links and how to find her in the show notes here at sweetlifeco.com. But then also we get to jam in a Clubhouse room. So if you guys are on Clubhouse and you're listeners to this show and you are a subscriber, like you've clicked the subscribe button, you're getting downloads of these episodes. And so you're listening to it real time. Carrie and I are going to be live on Clubhouse on the Wednesday that this show drops at 12 o'clock Eastern time. So if you're listening to the show in real time, Carrie's going to be in our clubhouse room taking your questions, workshopping with you, talking about these 5 buckets and brand archetype and all this stuff. And if you've never moderated or with a room with her, if you've never been in a room where she moderates, she's so much fun. That's where I found her. And I can't wait for you guys to get a chance to dive in deeper with Carrie as well. So Carrie, thank you so much for being a guest on the show and all of the genius that you brought. It's been such a fun time hanging out with you. I love everything that you said. And I know our listeners really appreciate you pouring into them.
Thank you so much. It literally means the world to me. I said at the beginning, it literally means the world to me. Thank you so much for having me.
You're so sweet. It's truly our pleasure.